Well, it is awesome to see so many people here today. Just a little round of applause if you were at EMP last night. Even more awesome that you're actually here today. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to talk about the future of app marketing. And it's a really interesting conversation to be had because we live in a world where we have 2,300 apps launching every single day across both app stores. Factually, though, most of those apps are just clones of apps that are still there, that are being created by bots. But that still means that there are several hundred apps per day being launched across both the major app stores. That's a huge amount of competition. Competition is driving up the price of acquisition if you're using paid media to get people into your app. Organic is becoming incredibly important. Chatbots are around the corner, and they're starting to have some kind of impact, but as of yet, we haven't seen a lot of commerce examples within the chatbot universe. So, joining me to talk about all of these things and more is Mike Dudas and Michael Katz and Jim Payne, and I will let them do a small introduction to tell you a little bit more about what they're doing in this space and what's interesting. Mike, over to you.
Absolutely. So Button is pioneering a new customer acquisition and engagement channel on mobile and giving app marketers a new way to acquire customers and transactions. So historically, organic marketing, app install advertising and re-engagement advertising as a channel have been the primary ways to acquire new customers and re-engage them. Button is pioneering a new one, which is what we call contextual commerce. We give you as an app marketer the ability to create a button that is a representation of your service. If you're Uber, it's a representation of the rides you provide, OpenTable, a representation of the tables you provide. And then we work with those commerce companies to place those buttons inside of publisher environments. We work with publishers who represent 150 million monthly active users, and we place those buttons in highly contextual, highly relevant placements. I'm looking at a restaurant review, and I see a button that allows me to take an Uber to that restaurant or allows me to book an OpenTable reservation or order food via DoorDash. So we turn publisher content into actionable content, and it benefits both the publishers as well as the app marketers through this new channel. We've become the affiliation system of record on mobile for a number of really large companies, including Uber, including Caviar, and including Hotels.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Jim?
My name is Jim Payne. It's great to be here. It's really a pleasure to be part of this conference. By way of background, I started a company called MoPub back in 2010. We did a lot of mobile advertising, programmatic acquisition, and that kind of thing, and really created the category there. And MoPub obviously still a very large player in that space. After we sold that to Twitter, I left and started a mobile incubator in New York. And basically what we do now is think about some of these new categories that Mike was mentioning, and ways to create new applications, new consumer experiences, and new infrastructure enablement for all these different interesting categories that are emerging, mobile video being one that we're particularly interested in. And I joined Excel Partners last year as an entrepreneur in residence. And so basically what we're working on is finding what that next big thing is and iterating quickly to build that next great mobile experience.
Excellent. And Michael?
Cool. So mParticle is a data platform built for apps across mobile devices and other connected devices, allowing you to unify your data and then seamlessly connect it to and from any platform that you use to essentially run and grow your business. So what that means is start to break down a lot of the data silos that exist that prevent you from being able to ask and answer really complex questions about your users and what they're doing, and tie together all of that user behavior across all your various channels. So we are the data platform of record for companies like Airbnb, Spotify, King.com, Zappos, Postmates, and a whole host of other folks.
Excellent, thanks. I mean, let's get into the elephant in the room straight away. Let's talk about conversational UI, or as people like to call it, chatbots. at Mobile Beat last week, we just had chatbot after chatbot after chatbot because all the data is telling us in our research that they're becoming an important thing. And we're seeing lots of news around the chatbot arena. There's lots of really smart things going on in that space. And factually, they do help shorten the purchase cycle, from the point of finding a brand to talk to, getting through to actually buying something from that brand is shorter in, say, something like Facebook Messenger than it is in the app experience of searching for an app, using keywords, finding an app, deciding which one to download, then downloading it, hoping it gives you the right response. And if it doesn't, you've got to start that cycle again. And then eventually you might buy something. But Mike, I know you have some strong feelings about chatbots and especially commerce. Why don't you talk about it first?
Absolutely. So I would almost contradict everything that was stated there, in the sense that, and I mean that with great respect because I know you talked with a number of great companies at that session. What we found is that, particularly in commerce, so chatbots are wonderful, we found with our commerce partners, for customer service, for solving issues, for utility. But for actually taking a transactional event, every commerce company we've spoken with that has taken chatbot as a sort of top of funnel and then tried to get somebody all the way through to a transaction, they found very little usage, much higher drop-off rates, and many, many more steps to complete a transaction, literally 2, 3, 4x steps to complete a transaction. Why put users through that pain, particularly when users haven't indicated that chat platforms are areas where they want to transact? We're not seeing successes. Our partners are not seeing successes currently in commerce with chatbots. And frankly, you hear a lot about the WeChat analogy. And hey, we want to become the WeChat of the US, but WeChat actually doesn't perpetuate commerce in a chat format. They tried that years ago. It didn't work. And it's actually more sort of mini apps inside of the WeChat platform.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that point. I think it's true that the chatbot phenomenon in marketing has been mostly around the AI-enabled experience, where deep learning is going to make it possible to have a conversation with a robot that's going to be a fulfilling and effective and quick conversation. And that's just decidedly not the experience today.
Exactly.
I think it's quite a few years away from that. That being said, it's absolutely true that consumer user behavior is shifting towards more messaging interfaces across all sorts of platforms. So not only is messaging a really great way to drive viral growth for a particular consumer property, let's say, but it's also a great way for brands to stay in touch with their users. And so, in fact, we just did an investment in a company that's building infrastructure for chat because essentially the real trick is going to be having a brand be existing on 8 to 10 different chat platforms, be successful on all those different platforms, tie in all the different CRM and data about a particular user from internal back-end systems, and then manifest that information in a customer service type of interaction. I think that's going to be pretty large. But ultimately, if people think that chatbots are going to be the next app store, there's going to have to be a platform from one of the large vendors that's going to have to support that, support distribution, promote these new experiences, and actually build something upon which people can build businesses. And I think with Facebook's platform launch several years ago, I'm not sure that we see a lot of independent developers rushing towards partnering with Facebook to build a business on top of the Messenger platform just yet, because they're a little bit wary about that. And Apple doesn't really have an offering there either. Yep. So the problem that we see when we think about doing bots as a consumer experience is just that we don't have distribution and we don't have a reliable platform partner just yet. But I think the kernel of messaging being a compelling user experience is very real.
Yeah, I mean, the hype cycle's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it happened pretty fast and furious. But I think to your point, inherently there's a ton of risk on building a business on a single API, right? I think that there's a number of instances over the past number of years where companies have done that, and the rug has been completely pulled out from underneath them. Chatbots are actually nothing brand new, right? It's really just kind of the hype around it. I think one of the more successful chatbot experiences that people point to is like food ordering and delivery, and it's essentially a shortcut, right? And I think in those instances it makes sense where it's a repeatable purchase and it's usually one-dimensional. It's not like a very complex ordering process where there's a ton of discovery.
Like movie tickets or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can create a shortcut, right? You can tweet the pizza emoji and have a pizza show up, but all that is a shortcut to your favorite, right? So the simplification aspect, I think, is definitely a powerful one, right? Because we're always on the go, and that really is the heart of mobile. How can you make my life easier? How can you reduce the friction in the transactional experience? But I'm with Dudas here, where I think it's going to be a long road ahead if anybody's betting the future of their company on their chatbot experience.
And I love, just one last point, I love that you mentioned pizza. It feels as if innovation in new touch points and consumer touch points for commerce, the pizza folks are at the forefront. So literally, like, just watch what Pizza Hut, Domino's, and others are doing, and definitely copy, because they're exceptionally successful at finding new touch points to make it simple for folks to access their goods.
Yeah, I'd also just quickly add, I mean, it's tough. I mean, we work with some amazing clients who have invested a ton in their app experience, and to think that a simple chatbot is going to either replicate or replace that, I think completely discounts a ton of the R&D that has been invested in creating this amazing consumer experience. So the way that I think about it is more like bots are going to be about convenience, whereas apps are going to be much more about loyalty.
Yeah, if a bot platform emerged that provided more distribution than, let's say, the App Store does, then I could see the argument for launching a bot as a lightweight way to engage users, maybe drive them to the app experience. Right. That doesn't exist right now. So the app is absolutely the better experience in most cases. Yeah.
And it's an interesting situation we're in. I mean, Facebook opened up the Messenger API in April. Since April to this point, I think they have now 18,000 chatbots that have launched since April. And most of those are just people messing around with conversational chatbots. It's not serious. There are some serious people on there. You've got the likes of Fandango for movie tickets, and Domino's and Wingstop and many others. All looking at this space and understanding
Uber's
it.
In there, yeah.
To your point about customer service, the interesting thing about focusing on customer service as an acquisition and customer strategy is that in my most recent survey, I asked people what they were spending their mobile marketing budget on, and the vast majority of the money is going to user acquisition. I would wager that most of that user acquisition is for low-quality, high-volume users, because there's still this mobile marketing push where people say, if I can just get on the chart, then we'll make millions, right? And so they're just buying users, buying users, buying users. How valuable is it to really push harder into advocacy and customer service and buying maybe high-quality users, but then nurturing those so that every single one of those brings in 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 additional organic users?
Yeah, so a button, we would far prefer to constrain our supply. In other words, only appear in a very contextually relevant environment where a user clearly wants to take an action related to a product. Hey, I'm reviewing this beautiful hotel in Crete. I'd like to be linked through to this hotel that's being reviewed. So it's a very qualified user, somebody interested in the product, and so we'll bring them through there. From a customer service perspective, as sort of a separate question, I've seen, for example, United has done something really interesting where they've moved a ton of their on-flight entertainment into their app. So they've literally, there's no, seat back TV on many United airplanes. Literally, it's like bring your own device, and if you have the app downloaded, it's this value-add service that they've put into the app, and that's helping them acquire users organically. And to me, that falls under great customer service.
Except that the films they've got on there aren't necessarily bang up to date. So
Fair point.
It does suck a little bit.
Yeah, Mike's making a really important point, which is that the days of just essentially spending your way to the top of the chart is over for everybody except the very large spenders, the Candy Crushes of the world who can afford to spend $1 billion a year on acquisition. So if you don't have that $1 billion, you really have to be smarter about the users that you're acquiring, and you want to acquire users who are going to stick around in the app long enough. And retention has been an issue that's come up several times over the past 2 days here at this conference. You want to be able to find the users in that haystack of people who are actually going to have a successful, pleasant, positive experience with your app and then come back to it many times over the course of that customer lifetime. And so I really like what the guys at Button are doing because of that. It's essentially reaching out to that user at the point where they're going to have a great experience with the travel booking app rather than having just that be a random banner ad somewhere when you're not in that purchase intent mode.
Yeah, and customer service, just quick add to that, I think involves, hey, when I click a link, when I tap a button, when I tap something in a publisher environment, don't surprise me with redirects and other things. Treat me like a customer that you want to acquire with high value, right? Give me high quality inventory, show it to me, qualify that I want to go to the App Store to install this before I do, and just treat your users with respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think the common fiber across all of it in terms of making good decisions, whether it comes down to UA or engagement, once they are an acquired user, or from a CRM perspective, is data, right? Understanding your customers, being able to not only capture the data but also unify all of the data, right? Because I think every organization goes through the same progression, right? It starts with engineers having to query the database, right? And then that doesn't work after a while, so they have to implement a set number of tools, and those tools work and they get you from point A to point B, and then you end up outgrowing these tools. And so what ends up inevitably happening is you try to fit square pegs into round holes, and you grow out of these tools. And then everybody just ends up dumping data to a data warehouse to be able to answer and ask more complex questions, and that's really tough because it takes the power out of the hands of the business users completely, and it puts it back onto the engineers, and then everybody reaches a breaking point, right? So in order to be able to address things like user acquisition, retention, CRM, if it's like help desk or live support, it's really about consolidating those data silos, unifying them, abstracting them, and being able to automate all the different connection points.
So what does that mobile stack look like? If we're going to build a mobile stack, and we do build stacks, I mean, in marketing technology, the average company is using 20 separate tools connected together in a stack in order to do the job. Marketers are using 5 tools a day on average just to get their job done from that list of 20. And I've actually had respondents come back to me and tell me they're using 100 tools in a stack. Mm-hmm. That's complex. It's not just complex from the point of view of the user. It's difficult for all of the vendors that are making these tools, because we are still in a situation where marketing technology, especially mobile marketing technology, is pre the chasm. We haven't gone into mainstream yet. And one of the big issues there is because all of the tools have to move at the same time across the chasm. It's not just one moving, they all rely upon each other. So how do we build that stack? What does it look like for mobile marketing? What's the best combination of tools for us to elevate our mobile app marketing and get the best results?
I mean, I think it starts with you look at like the life cycle of an app, from initial development all the way through user acquisition and retention, right? So what's the first tool that everybody usually implements? It's actually crash reporting. Like, let me just make sure my app can stay open when people start to use it, right? And then you have to start to implement like product analytics tools, things like GA or Mixpanel or Amplitude, optimize your user flows, understand your cohorts, and really, optimize the organic experience. And then once that's in a pretty solid state, then it's about going out and playing offense and acquiring users and using tools like Tune to allow you to be able to go out and do that in a sophisticated fashion, right? And then once people are into the funnel, keeping them engaged. through various forms of messaging, whether it's email, push, retargeting, things like that. And then you start to see some of these additional tools that have come to market, things like A/B testing and various CRM solutions.
Yeah, and for us at Button, we are effectively the only mobile app affiliate solution, correct? So we're, it's necessary to work with us because there aren't other options. And the way that we can help with the marketing stack is by doing information sharing, right? So working with folks like mParticle, working with folks like Tune, who already work with our existing customers, and ensuring that we're both receiving and passing data so that they can view that data and those insights and that performance in the dashboard of their preference.
Having been on both sides of the marketing transaction, both as building end user experiences now and previously as an ad tech vendor, essentially, I actually look at fragmentation as being a good thing. A lot of people think it's too complicated. I've got all these tools. Maybe 100 is too many. But I like fragmentation because what it allows me to do is pick the right partner for each part of the stack that I need. So I can pick the right crash reporting tool for me, and there's 4 choices. And I can pick the best marketing channels for my app, which is going to be Button if it's more of a commerce experience, but if it's more of a media experience, it might be Facebook and Google as channels. Yeah. So I like the fact that I have all that choice. And I think the interesting problem of today is basically making it possible for those choices to be made in a way where there's a lot less friction. And that's been the story of mobile up until this point, is just the amount of friction working with software that has to ship through an app store that can't be constantly updated on the server side, where you actually have to ship bits out to your distribution partner and have those bits land on the phone possibly days later. That's created the whole category of folks like of mParticle and Mike, and what he's working on, trying to make it possible for one app to be able to select the right partners for each piece of the stack from the best that is the best fit for my particular needs in my particular end user category.
And I would just add, like, where the value really gets like created or destroyed is in between all of the different touch points where your data ends up, right? One of the big challenges of having data sitting in a number of different platforms is that in using each one of those platforms, you'll only achieve local maximums, right? You need to be able to unify all of that data to break out beyond that and achieve more of a global maximum.
So look, I really like that you started with crash reporting. It speaks to just the last thing we can squeeze into this awesome session. But this audience have been giving us their full attention, and thank you for that. But factually, our mobile attention spans have been reducing dramatically year on year. 85% reduction year on year in mobile attention spans, 35% reduction quarter on quarter in terms of time spent in app. That means that we're basically getting in and getting out very quickly. It also means that if your product is not perfect from day one, people are going to not get you past the 7-second mark, let alone 7 minutes, right? So, that old adage of just ship it, it'll be fine, we'll iterate, that can't work anymore. That, Facebook have got to pull all those posters off the wall because they're just not going to work anymore. So what can we do? What can we give this audience in terms of a tangible thing that they could do around maybe soft launching, tactics, different ways that you can get to perfection in your target market by maybe launching in smaller, like-minded markets elsewhere and those kinds of things? What are the tactics?
So I'll start with one quick anecdote, or one quick point, which is time or attention in the commerce sphere. The ability to get somebody in and out of your app fast with what they wanted to purchase or book is actually a great metric, right? You want folks getting what they need in the least amount of time. So we look at it very differently. I think it's a better question. That the question is more directed at the publisher side, right?
Right.
So you work with more sort of publishers, I would say, on that than we do.
I mean, I think one of the reasons I've always liked what you guys are doing is because it's not just good for the marketer and the publisher. It's also good for the consumer, right? I don't think anybody in this room would argue that historically mobile ads have been very challenging, right? There's there's just a better way to do it. Because when you think about mobile and the heart of the mobile experience, it's about transactions. How can I make your life easier? How can I press a button and have a car show up, right? Like that's Uber. How can I press a button and have anything delivered to my apartment or house, right? That's Postmates. So those kind of like magical moments and those incredible consumer experiences, how do you create that seamless experience inside another app, connecting to other apps? And that's what I love about what those guys are doing.
So yeah, he basically just sold my company better than me. So apologies for being negligent there.
There'll be some money transactions.
Yeah, the publisher piece is key. Is we actually are getting folks comfortable with short session times. We call it FOLO, fear of linking out. But like publishers need to get more comfortable with linking out if they deliver that content, that action that the user wants, because it will lead to greater trust, and the user will come back more often because they'll appreciate that product, that service they discovered through that publisher app environment.
Last word on this, Jim?
Sure. I think from my perspective, the thing that you need to do, because attention spans are decreasing and there's a million great experiences you can have on your mobile phone, is that you've got to absolutely thrill the user immediately. You don't have time anymore to do these complicated onboarding processes. And perfection, I think, for a product used to mean super high polished, high depth, very feature rich, long, complicated experience, a tool that can do a lot of things. But I think these days, in order to really break through the noise, you have to deliver something to the consumer that they immediately get value from, and immediately want to tell their friends about. And that's really the only way to break through the noise, because you can't afford to acquire your way to users. It's really got to be thrilling enough for people to want to spread the word. And Mike brought up some great examples of that, where you press a button and a car shows up. That's a thrilling moment that is out of the box, doesn't require any configuration for the user to do, and of course they can get deeper into the tool as they become a more habituated user. But the most important thing is grabbing the person in the very, very t equals 0 moment.
Fantastic. Hey, listen, this has been awesome. We could talk for hours, but I'm afraid we can't because they won't let us. And we've got through the whole session without mentioning Pokemon Go, so congratulations on that, guys.
We will allow you to put a button in to call an Uber to go catch that Pokemon, all right?
Stop.
There you go.
So I'd like to just thank Mike and Jim and Michael. Please give them a warm round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Appreciate it.